had your back. Today's video has two pieces to it. The first is a science magic experiment, and the second is a story. And both of them have to do with invisible. What? Yeah. First, we're going to do a science-y magic trick that you can bedazzle your parents or your older brothers and sisters with, okay? For that, you're going to need a penny, a tall glass, and a container of water that you can pour into the glass, okay? And then we're going to have a story about a boy who feels invisible. Why? And how does he turn out not to be so invisible? Okay? Stay tuned. Let's see what we've got going today, okay? Hang on. The invisible penny. Woo! So now, take the empty glass, put it on top of the penny, then take your water and pour that into the glass. Oh, yes. And oh, my goodness. Wait a minute. I can't see the penny anymore. Where did it go? Is it still there? Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Look. Look. Oh, there it is. The penny is still there. How come? It's refraction. So what is this? When light travels from air into water, it slows down and changes direction slightly. This change of direction is called refraction, and that's why we can't see the penny. The light has moved just enough so the penny is not visible. Okay, now it's time for this week's story. Are you ready for a cool story? This week, it's really kind of cool. It's called The Invisible Boy. And it's a boy who feels invisible, even though he's not. He just feels left out. Have you ever been the one person who's last to get picked on the playground for kickball or dodgeball? And you feel like, oh man, nobody likes me. I'm not one of the cool kids. Well, that's what this week's story is about. A boy who just doesn't feel like anybody even sees him. And you'll find out later that, sometimes that happens in churches. Yep. In some of the early churches after Easter, Paul found out that they were picking favorites and deciding who was one of the cool kids and who was not. And you can imagine what Paul said about that. So, you ready for this story? Here we go. The Invisible Boy, written by Trudy Ludwig. She lives in Portland. And illustrations by Patrice Barton. Can you see Brian, the invisible boy? Even Mrs. Carlotti has trouble noticing him in her classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. Nathan has problems with what Miss Carlotti calls volume control. He uses his outside voice inside way too much. Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. Nathan and Sophie take up a lot of space. Brian doesn't. When the bell rings for recess, Micah and JT take turns choosing kids for their kickball team. The best players get picked first. Then the best friends of the best players. Then the friends of the best friends. Only Brian is left, still waiting and hoping. JT glances in Brian's direction and just as quickly looks away. We've got enough players for each team, he tells the others. Let's play ball. In the cafeteria, Madison and her friends talk about her birthday party. The rope swing over the pool was awesome, says JT. Yeah, so was the water slide, adds Fiona. That was the best pool party ever. I'm so glad you guys had fun, says Madison. Everybody did except Brian. He wasn't invited. At choosing time, while the other kids play board games and read, Brian sits at his table doing what he loves to do best. He draws fire-breathing dragons scaling tall buildings. Thank you for toasting my marshmallow. Space aliens locked in intergalactic battles. I got you now. Greedy pirates digging for treasure. Crackers, arg! And superheroes with the power to make friends wherever they go. Hi, friend. Have a cookie? On Monday morning, Ms. Carlotti introduces Justin, a new student to the class. Brian smiles shyly at him. Some of the other kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's cool enough to be their friend. They haven't quite made up their minds yet. At lunch, Madison and JT watch Justin eat with chopsticks. What's that? Asks Madison as she points at Justin's food. It's bulgogi. What? Bulgogi. It's Korean barbecued beef. My grandma made it for me. It's really good. Do you want to try some? There's no way I'll eat bulgogi. And the kids laugh. All of them, that is, except Brian. He sits there wondering which is worse, being laughed at or feeling invisible. The next day, when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his knapsack, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it. Justin, I thought the bulgogi looked good. Brian. At morning recess, Brian finds a piece of chalk on the ground and starts drawing away. You're Brian, right? Yeah. Thanks for the note. Hey, Justin, Emilio calls out from the tetherball court. You're up next. Sorry, I gotta go, says Justin. By the way, that's a really cool drawing, he adds before taking off. Back in class, Mrs. Carlotti asks the kids to team up in 2s or 3s for a special project. The kids scurry around the room to pair off. Brian heads toward Justin. I'm already with Justin, says Emilio. Find someone else. Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up. Mrs. Carlotti says we can have up to 3 people in our group. We're only 2. Come on, Emilio. Let him work with us. Okay, I guess, says Emilio. Mrs. Carlotti gives the class directions for the project. Your assignment is to work together to write a story about what you see in that photograph. Use your imagination and have fun. Whoa, cool, says Emilio. What kind of people do you think would live in houses like that? I don't know, but I bet Brian could draw them to go with our story, says Justin. Brian smiles as he takes out his lucky pen. And here's their project. My goodness. What does it say on the blackboard? The crooked story we made up on the spot. It's lunchtime again, Brian's least favorite part of the day. Another 20 long minutes of kids talking and laughing with everyone else but him. Brian, he hears someone shout. Hey, Brian, Over here!" Brian turns and sees Justin waving him over. Emilio nods at Brian as he makes room for him at the table. Maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all. The end. Well, Brian is not so invisible, is he, by the end of the book, right? His friend Justin, his new friend Justin, certainly saw him, and so did Emilio. And I think the whole class did after they saw the cool pictures that Brian drew for their project. That's something Jesus talked about a lot, how each one of us is special. Each one of us is loved by God. And that God doesn't care whether you are rich or famous or one of the cool kids or not one of the cool kids, whether you are good at soccer or good at drawing or you like to read or do science. It doesn't make any difference to him. He thinks each one of us is worthy of his love and is special in our own way. So what way are you special? Because I know each one of you have something that you like to do or that you're good at. Sometimes it can take us a while to figure that out. But once you do, then that's cool. And as I mentioned before, in the early church, they did have the same problem as in this book, is that some people were treated more special than other people. And Paul, in one of his letters, had to kind of remind people, wait a minute, that's not the way Jesus wants us to treat other people. Because remember, what did I say? Jesus loves each one of us, and each one of us is precious to him. So, have a good week. Ooh, school is going to start really soon, isn't it? Ah! Well, it's okay. You can at least listen to this video every week and have a cool story, right? See you later. Bye. See you next week.